This additional news on Zodiac is read by Sibongile Ziambo. The headlines. High Court defers its verdict on 3 2019 parliament election disputes to Thursday. Fistula come to reopen at Wela Hospital after government rescinded decision to move it to KCH. Continued attacks on persons with albinism has worried Disability Ministry. And in sports, analysts cast doubts on resumption of Super League matches this weekend due to COVID-19. The news in detail. The High Court in Blantyre has deferred its final determination on 3 2019 parliament election disputes to Thursday this week. The court was scheduled to deliver its ruling Tuesday afternoon. 3 candidates that contested in the 2019 parliament election in Sanje Central, Chikwawa East and Chikwawa Central are contesting results which make declare DPP's Francis Kasaida, Esther Mcheka Chilenji and Rodik Tepiwa as winners. From Blantyre, here's Emmanuel Chibwana.
The petitioners Foster Tepiwa, Enoch Jezuzo and Kafanikalen and Ivana wants the court to nullify election results for 3 constituencies, namely Chikwawa East, Sanje Central and Sanje North. These are the constituencies which former First Deputy Speaker Esther Mcheka Chilenji was declared winner, and also former Minister Francis Kasaida was declared as winner. Weta Kosa Moya for the petitioners told ZBS the court has decided to deliver the ruling this Thursday due to administrative issues.
All lawyers have been informed about this change, and the judgment will be delivered on Thursday. But I understand it won't be in ordinary court due to the COVID issues. I think we are going, all lawyers will go and collect the judgment from the court. After all, so a necessary judgment is a necessary judgment because the judge has to do the best. He knows about the judgment, and we should all be patient and wait for that particular day.
According to him, it's about COVID matters, and lawyers have been instructed to go to the court to just get the ruling by hand and read the ruling, and also advise their clients on what will transpire after the ruling. So people from these 3 constituencies are still waiting to hear what will come out from this court intervention.
Meanwhile, Senior Resident Magistrate Sherin Chirwa has committed to the High Court case in which 2 ex-ministers, Charles Mchacha and Simon Vua Kaunda, former Chief Secretary Lloyd Muhala and Principal Secretary Bright Kumwembe, the 4 have been formally charged with 6 counts, which includes abuse of office, inducing public officers, misuse of office as ministers, and giving false information. Andrew Viano filed this report.
The accused ex-ministers Charles Mchacha and Simon Vua Kaunda, former Secretary to President in Cabinet Lloyd Muhara and PS Bright Kumwembe appeared before Magistrate Shailene Chirwa for formal charges Tuesday morning. Before being formally charged, lawyer for Mchacha, Chance Gondwe, opposed the idea of committing the case to the High Court before some legal processes were completed in the lower court. But in her ruling, Chirwa said the case, which is before Principal Resident Viva Nyimba, will continue. She further read out 6 counts that have been leveled against the 4, which include inducing public officers, abuse of office, and giving false information. Counsel Gondo, so representing Lloyd Muhala, says he is ready to defend his clients in the High Court.
We raised a couple of issues. One of the issues was the manner in which the file was transferred from one magistrate to another magistrate. So we wanted the magistrate to clarify on that. And again, we raised issues to do with capacity of the SCP at the moment. The accused person's case has been committed to the High Court for trial, but there are also some other charges against the accused persons which are before another magistrate. We shall be waiting to go before that other magistrate so that directions can also be made as regards those other proceedings that are before another magistrate. What we wanted was the law to be followed. So if the law has been followed, we are satisfied. And if the law has not been followed, we can't say we are satisfied. So we will see how best to handle that aspect.
The 4 were arrested last year for their role in the alleged dubious acquisition of land by then Deputy Minister of Homeland Security Charles Thompson Mchacha. In the case, the state says then Minister Vua Kaunda in Muhara signed for the acquisition of the piece of land which is situated in Ikanjeza Blantyre and belongs to the Department of Forestry.
Minister of Gender and Social Welfare says it is worried with continued attacks and abductions of persons with albinism in the country, despite government interventions to protect them. Speaking during a press briefing in Lilongwe on Tuesday, Minister responsible Patricia Kaliati says the recent attack on 20-year-old Saidi Daitoni, a boy with albinism in Mangochi, signifies that Malawi is still at war to protect people with albinism. However, she says government will continue to ensure that persons with albinism are safe. This report forwarded by Western Guta.
Minister of Gender and Social Welfare Patricia Kaliati says government is saddened by the recent abduction of a 20-year-old Saidi Daiton, a person with albinism in Mangochi, whose search is yet to yield results. Kaliati has therefore disclosed that government will review previous interventions that were put in place to protect them. She has since asked law enforcement agencies, including the courts, to expedite cases that are under investigation so that justice is safe to deter the would-be abusers and violators.
It's heartbreaking and a thing that we cannot condone. We would like to call upon all the stakeholders that we need to work together and make sure that we will bring to an end. Persons with albinism, the Malawians, they always take part in the socio-economic development of the nation and the programs which are taking place under the ministry and the government. We are assuring them that we are going to take care and look after them and protect them as well. And that's why we call upon all the stakeholders, the communities, the villagers, the relatives, to make sure that whenever they're having a walk and a visit, they've got to be with somebody else. In that way, people will be afraid to attack them because they know that they have somebody else with them.
20-year-old Saidi Daiton was abducted and murdered in Kadewele village, THOA in Mangochi on 27th January. 3 suspects have been arrested so far, and the police have told us that investigations are still underway. The country has since registered 170 cases of attacks and abductions of people with albinism. Reporting for Zodiak in Lilongwe, this is Western Guta.
After 9-month closure of the Bwaila Fistula camp in Lilongwe to pave way for COVID-19 operations, government has finally let the place back to Freedom from Fistula Foundation to resume repairing women who had the fistula condition. Confirming this to Zodiac, Executive Director of Freedom from Fistula, Moyo said, "It is a great relief for women who were left stranded in many parts across the country." Over 100 health rights activist Mphatso Nguluwe has since cautioned government against making health crisis decisions at the expense of other vulnerable groups. Jacqueline Hema has more.
In April 2020, government decided to close the only fistula camp at Bwaila Maternity Hospital to pave way for a COVID-19 isolation center in the early days of the pandemic in Malawi. The Ministry of Health wrote managers of the center, Freedom from Fistula Foundation, to relocate to Kamu Central Hospital, but the organization refused for reasons that the new place at KCH was not conducive. With government unwilling to change heart, founder of the foundation, Dr. Annie Glog, closed the center on November 30, 2020, leaving over 100 women with fistula in the code. Now, after months of discussions, Moyo, Executive Director of the foundation, says the foundation and government have signed an MOU to resume operations at Bwaila.
You have now received an MOU confirming that the Fistula Care Center can remain at Bwaila, operated by the Freedom from Fistula Foundation, in fact, for the next 5 years, and we are so grateful.
Director of Reproductive Health in the Ministry of Health, Fanny Kajari, has also confirmed news of the MOU.
When the place was temporarily closed, it was because we did not have a place to keep the COVID patients. But otherwise, as of now, we have seen what government has done. We now have that hospital, so the center at Bwaila is free to be used by the Freedom from Fistula Foundation.
Health rights activist Mphatso Nguluwe is glad the center is back, but regrets the care of over 100 women during the time the center was closed.
In future, the government should be able to make proper decisions, because we shouldn't take certain conditions like they don't cause any harm to people. Even the fistula causes harm.
For 10 years, the Freedom from Fistula Foundation has repaired over 3,000 women, who in turn become ambassadors of other women, especially from rural areas, to also be identified and repaired. This is Jacqueline Shema for Zodiac in Lilongwe.
Meanwhile, Blantyre residents have called on health workers at Queen Elizabeth Hospital to demonstrate care in handling patients. They feel lack of care by health workers might restrain people from seeking medical help from the facility. Meanwhile, health rights activist Masiko Matemba says the workers should be mindful that there are fears and myths among people on COVID-19 issues, and hence the need for the health workers to handle people with care. Alfred Guta reports.
Some Blantyre residents who spoke to Zodiac feel some health workers are to blame for people's lack of interest to seek medical help at Queen Elizabeth Central Hospital.
They have no respect for us patients. We know they are overwhelmed, but still they should be kind to us. We rely on hospitals for medical attention whenever we fall sick. We have nowhere to go. They should be attending to us as expected, but most of the times they take too long to give us treatment. Sometimes they'll just prescribe Panadol without proper diagnosis.
According to how people go back to hospitals, like when they go there, they don't take a stay from the patient. Some people, they just have fear that maybe they can go to hospital, they'll just say how this COVID instead of listening to what I can explain as the person who is having the problem.
A health rights activist, Masiko Matemba, shares the concerns.
It's very important that they make sure that they are providing the services. This also is a call to the Ministry of Health to make sure that they do their mandate of supervision to supervise our hospitals to check if indeed they are following the guidelines and also the guidelines of continuity of services, but also our regulatory bodies like the Medical Council, but also we have the ombudsman in our facilities. They also need to support, including the civil society.
Queen Elizabeth Central Hospital Deputy Clinical Head of Pediatrics, Dr. George Galuka, over the weekend declared a sharp decline in the number of children being brought to the facility for medical help. He suspects this is due to fear that they could either contract COVID-19 at the hospital or be tested for the virus. For Zodiac in Blantyre, this is Alfred Guta reporting.
The Malawi Human Rights Commission, MHRC, has observed with great concern that most organizers of various demonstrations do not provide their copies of petition to the rights body, making it difficult for the organization to help in investigating the issues. MHRC Executive Secretary Habiba Osman says most demonstrations taking place in the country hinge on human rights issues, but the organization is not involved. Meanwhile, Mzuzu City Council spokesperson McDonald Conway agrees that most petitions they have received lately, organizers do not copy MHRC. From Mzuzu, Toera Kumwenda has more.
A statement released Tuesday, Malawi Human Rights Commission says it has noted that most organizers of demonstrations do not furnish the commission with copies of their petitions, a development the body says is worrisome. MHRC Executive Secretary Habiba Osman says most issues raised in the petitions hinge on human rights, and where the Commission does not have information regarding the issues being presented, it becomes difficult to investigate and engage concerned parties.
It's just to make sure that, people also know that Malawi Human Rights Commission is mandated to receive petitions, and we're just wanting to clarify that if we do not get a petition, it is difficult for us to make any move.
Human Rights Defenders Coalition, HRDC, is one of the bodies that has been in the streets demonstrating on various issues, but its regional chairperson for the North, Happy Mhango, acknowledges the concerns by the body, but was quick to say sometimes organizations feel reserved to send petitions when a human rights body seems biased.
Sometimes it becomes a little bit problematic and trust issues come in, especially where you have a National Human Rights Commission, which some citizens think sympathizes with the regime. So people tend to lose trust in that. I'm not saying a Human Rights Commission has demonstrated that, but I'm saying sometimes that becomes the case.
Mzuzu City Council spokesperson McDonald Gondwe has acknowledged that from the demonstrations that have been occurring since 2018, the council has not received a petition where copies were also sent to MHRC.
Since 2018, the council has not been, I can confirm that the council has not been copying or sending a copy to Malawi Human Rights Commission because according to the petitioners, they usually skip that element of copying Malawi Human Rights Commission.
Meanwhile, Blantyre City Council spokesperson Anthony Kasunda concurs with Gondwe that the council's duty ends when sending copies of petitions to where they have been addressed. For Zodiak in Mzuzu, I'm Toera Kumwenda.
Maula Prison has sent out an appeal for nutritious food for inmates with intensifying threat of COVID-19. Speaking when Red Cross donated various items meant to combat the spread of coronavirus, the facility's head of clinical services, Edward Msowoya, said the prison does not have adequate capacity to deal with the deadly virus. Maula Prison has 22 positive COVID-19 cases, 16 inmates and 6 staff members. This report read by Western Guta.
Maula Prison says lack of nutritious food to inmates and shortage of space are its major challenges in the fight against COVID-19 pandemic. Speaking on Monday when the Malawi Red Cross Society donated various items to assist in efforts to contain the spread of coronavirus, the facility's head of clinical services, Edward Msowoya, appealed to stakeholders to assist the prisons which struggle even in normal circumstances. Msowoya says meanwhile, 16 inmates and 6 members of staff tested positive for coronavirus.
We receive the budgets, but it isn't much enough to cater to the large number of preparation that we are having. So with this donation, I'm surely, and indeed surely, it is going to assist us and to help us so that our inmates should be addressed in a healthy condition.
Red Cross Head of Disaster Management Aston Mulwafu has encouraged members of the general public to provide any kind of support towards the fight against the pandemic.
The state president did request different institutions to help with support for COVID-19 activities in the Malawi prisons. You know, there have been problems where the prisons have been unable to procure the COVID-19 preventive and control measures. So we brought in various items, including blankets, sleeping mats, soap, so that they can use to fight the pandemic.
The organization plans to take the donation to the country's prisons, isolation centers and central hospitals. Each institution will receive 100 blankets, 100 mosquito nets, 100 sleeping mats, hand sanitizers and soap. With support from the European Union, the Malawi Red Cross Society has set aside 1.6 billion kwacha for support in efforts to combat COVID-19. Reporting for Zodiak in Lilongwe, this is Western Guta.
You're watching news on Zodiac. We'll be right back shortly after the break. Stand by.
Kodi ndinu nomwe somuzitichwa olemegezeka kodi?
Koma machedwatu. Nakatobwera ndazotira mazanosi. Mona mchedo.
Kungoti ndadzera ku Audible. Ndimakasiya mafomu ofotokoza za chuma, business komanso za ngongole zimene ndili nazo. Anzathu munakaulula kale ngati?
Ayi. Komanso ndinezoulula zimangoona ngati nkungotcherana misampha chabe.
Kutcherana misampha kotani?
Olemegezeka.
Inu chuma choti mwachipeza mwachilungamo, ungachite mantha? Kapena tumwina mufuna mutapeza chuma chanu kudzera munjira zosalongosoka koma pogwiritsa ntchito dindo wanu.
Eso sichoncho.
Mwinatu. Chifukwa ineyo ngati MP, inunso ngati munthu amene muli ndi udindo kuboma, tinayenera kuulula chuma chathu, business athu ku Audible. Tisachite kudikira kuti mpaka nati kumbutse yayi. Komanso anthu amene ine ndimatumikira anayenera kukhala ndi chikhulupiriro mwa ineyo.
Zoona.
Yetu. Mpaka na maina athu mpaka nati chiti discipline.
Isizabwino.
Ndipanga zomwezo komanso ndizawuza koso anzanga yena.
Akuluakulu ogwira ntchito zaboma kandi fama udindo ochita kusankhidwa ndi anthu kapena ndifo ochita kulembedwa tikuyenera kuulula chuma ngongole komanso mabizinesi omwe tili nawo ku Audible kuti tipewe kuyimbidwa mlandu kuyimitsidwa kapena kuchosedwa ntchito kumene. Uthengawo ukukufikani kuchokera ku Office of the Director of Public Officers Declarations, Audible.
Precious things have a secret formula. While John is busy trying to impress, James discovered Tangu's secret. Tangu uses Purity sanitary products from Purity body wash, Purity hands wash, Purity body lotion to Purity dishwash. After a week of using Purity sanitary products, James won the heart of Tangu. Use Purity sanitary products.
Welcome back. A look at the headlines once again. High Court defers its verdict on 3 2019 parliamentary election disputes to Thursday. Fistula camp to reopen at Wela Hospital after government rescinded decision to move it to KCH. Continued attacks on persons with albinism has worried Disability Ministry. In sports, analysts cast doubt on resumption of Super League matches this weekend due to COVID-19. I am Sibongile Ziambo. Thank you for joining me. Authorities at Mulanje Vocational School for the Blind have disclosed that shortage of classrooms at the institution is affecting training of students based on their levels of understanding and education. The school's principal, Mr. Adam Mlara, says the school enrolls people with different degrees of visual impairments and different levels of education, but lack of adequate school blocks is forcing the institution to accommodate all students in one classroom. Meanwhile, Press Trust has committed 52 million kwacha for the construction of one school block, rehabilitation of one school block, and purchasing of Braille embroiser at the school. Hastings Yumani reports.
Principal of Mulanje Vocational School for the Blind, Adam Mlaya, says the school enrolls people with different degrees of visual impairments and different levels of education. However, Mlaya says due to lack of adequate school blocks, as they have only 2 classrooms, all trainees are just mixed in the 2 classrooms, and he said this affects training of students based on their needs and levels of understanding and education.
We get some who have done up to standard 1 or standard 5, and also know those who have JC, MCE, some are graduates, some are postgraduate students, and they all come to Mulanje once they lose their sights. What we do is put them in one class. So we found it to be somehow abnormal. We wished we had so many classrooms so that we can arrange them according to their capabilities.
Meanwhile, Place Trust has committed 52 million kwacha for construction of one school block, rehabilitation of one school block, and purchasing of Braille embosser for the school. Mariam Ndoko Kapiepie is Place Trust Projects Manager.
Place Trust will be supporting this institution by rehabilitating the existing classroom block. In addition to that, we are also going to construct a new classroom block. Again, we are going to provide furniture, that's beds and mattresses, for their newly constructed hostel. And we are also going to provide a Braille embosser and its software.
Minister of Gender, Children, Community Development and Social Welfare, Patricia Kariati, while thanking Press Trust for the gesture, urged other organizations to bail out the school from areas of challenges like lack of a brick fence.
Indeed, having resources, that is also a priority. Whether the fences will be in phases, we are going to do that. That's why we're asking a number of well-wishers to come forward and follow suit what the Press Trust has done and support the School of the Blind.
Press Trust has given the contractor Clifton Civil and building contractors 15 months to finish construction of the school block and rehabilitation of another classroom. For Zodiak in Mulanje, this is Hastings Jimani reporting.
Dedza District Forestry Office says 500 hectares of planted trees have been lost due to uncontrolled fires and irresponsible grazing of livestock in Dedza Forest the past 10 years. District Assistant Officer Mr. Ganzani Kambwiri says reforestation efforts are not yielding desirable results, with 40% of trees planted each year failing to survive. Kambwiri has described the situation as worrisome, imploring local leaders and community members to start owing the trees planted each year to reclaim the lost vegetation in the forest. Chukondi Mpande filed this report.
There's a District Assistant Forest Officer, Mr. Ganzan Kambwiri, told us the Forest Office is facing a number of challenges, compromising efforts of retaining vegetation cover. He cited bushfires, wanton cutting down of trees and animal grazing in plantation as examples. According to Kambwiri, in the past 10 years, 500 hectares of planted trees have been consumed by wildfire. The district forestry head said currently 963 hectares of land in Dedza Mountain is bare, representing 52% out of the 1,883 hectares. He has since asked people of Dedza district to help in planting trees on the bare land. Meanwhile, Chief Executive Officer of the National Construction Industry Council, Linda Piri, has asked stakeholders in the industry to help in planting trees, saying people benefit from the trees in many ways, among them timber.
The Catholic Commission for Justice and Peace, CCJP, has tipped the Malawi police to work professionally to win more public confidence. CCJP project officer for Kasungu, Hastings Chilima, says corruption and biasness of some officers continue to tarnish the image of the law enforcement agency. Chilima was reacting to sentiments by the Commissioner for Central Region, who says public confidence has been restored with the police. And now we move on to sports news. Sports analysts have cast doubts on resumption of Super League matches this weekend due to escalating COVID-19 cases in the country. Analyst George Masina says Super League players are yet to be tested for COVID-19, which makes resumption of games doubtful. While Pare Chinyama says the COVID-19 situation is not a good environment for football. This is the final week of the TNM Super League 3 weeks recess. Brad Kanyama filed this report.
3 weeks ago, Super League of Malawi Sulum suspended Super League matches for 3 weeks, and as we go into the final week of the 3 weeks, there is absolutely no hope that the games will resume over the weekend as planned. Sulum told us that it will use the 3 weeks period to test all stakeholders, including players, but the exercise is yet to take shape. This, according to local analysts, is a clear indication that Super League matches will remain on hold. Commenting on the matter, analyst George Masina said though the development is a setback to the country's football, but was quick to acknowledge the danger of playing football in the current status.
If you look at what FAM and Sulum have been saying, is that they will only test when they know when the league is going to resume. So with this in mind, let's forget about the kickoff in the next few weeks or so.
Another analyst, Pale Chinyama, concurred with Masina.
I don't see the resumption of the football in Malawi. Maybe 2-3 weeks more. We should wait until football can start.
Minister of Health has over the weeks insisted that football matches remains on hold as the COVID-19 situation is being assessed. For Zodiac, this is Bright Kanyama.
That item brings us to the end of this newscast, and before we go, a recap of the top stories. High Court defers its verdict on 3 2019 parliament election disputes to Thursday. Fistula come to reopen at Waila Hospital after government rescinded decision to move it to KCH. Continued attacks on persons with albinism has worried Disability Ministry. In sports, analysts cast doubts on resumption of Super League matches this weekend due to COVID-19. Visit our website, zodiacmalawi.com, for more on these and other stories. My name is Sibongile. Thank you for watching. Remember, wearing of face masks and frequent washing of hands with soap aids in containing the spread of coronavirus. Bye for now.
The Ministry of Gender, Community Development and Social Welfare wishes to inform the general public that it